Hey guys, this game kind of has a problem, and I haven't seen that many people talk about it, at least not recently. So I figured I would be one of them to kind of go a bit more in depth on the conversation topic. And it's related to a specific character and mechanic in the game. You might know what I'm talking about, but what I am talking about is Elowyn specifically, and the concept of Regen in this game. So when I do takeovers for people, I do a lot of takeovers. A lot of them are heavily handicapped by Elowyn, especially for newer content, and it's clear that it's becoming a little bit of a problem. With every new piece of content coming out, it seems like over and over again, Elowyn constantly is almost required. You have to jump through so many hoops to not use her, and it's clear that they're designing it with Elowyn in mind and saying screw you to everyone else. And the part of the game I'm kind of referencing to that kind of methodology is the gear dungeons. It's clear that the gear dungeons are designed around her, and it's very hard to do without. For example, no Elowyn, as you can see here, is doable for stage 5, although hard, right? But then when you get to stage 6, it's almost impossible to do it without Elowyn. I think I am currently the only person to do it, at least on YouTube, that I've seen. I've done it a couple times, but you need like an A5 Nyx, and that is just way too much to ask from the average person. Because even free to play, if you played for like a year and a half, chances are, unless you get quote unquote unlucky, you're not going to be able to fulfill that requirement, and you're not going to be able to beat the stages in the game. And now, it wouldn't usually be an issue because I do firmly believe that content where you get stuck very easily is not a bad thing. I think it's good to have a little bit of something to work towards, which is why I'm hoping the new guild boss coming out very soon will be very hard, be something that literally no one's able to do yet until a little bit later. I hope that happens. But the reason why it's not good here, where you're limited by one specific hero, and even in some cases multiple, which further emphasizes my point, it's not a good thing. And that's just because you shouldn't be this hero restrictive. And hero restrictions is never good in games, especially gacha games, in my opinion. I think the beauty of games like this, which have large diversity in their rosters, is that you can allow certain heroes to thrive in ways that would not really be expected. So stuff where kind of units that seem undervalued, underappreciated are good in a lot of areas, and units that are very like accessible are good in a lot of areas. It just takes a certain amount of skill to use them. So with kind of attributing to like the easy to get ones, like Olog's really good, and that's great. And is amazing for a lot of content. For certain things where not a lot of heroes that seem good could be used in certain areas, I could reference like Nasalt, who is the best Aureus Codex hero. I think that sort of thing is good, where you can beat it without them. But if you know how to play the game, then you could use them to excel. But the issue with having Elowyn be so required is that entire part of the game, which makes games like this so beautiful, which is part of why I like the diversity in Raid. Not recently, because they've been power creeping the hell out of literally every part in that game, so it's not true anymore, but part of why I liked Raid so much, because they had so many accessible, unique, diverse hero options that could be used anywhere. And while there is some hero restricted areas, most of the areas in that game are not. But in this game, it seems like they're going in the trend of the other direction, where they're not adding a lot of heroes. And the reason why Elowyn comes in mind so much, besides the part that she's absolutely busted, she's required for a lot of things, is also kind of referencing another problem, which is rage regen. Rage regen, debatably, is the most important mechanic in the game. I genuinely think in a lot of content, it might be more important than Dolores buff, or in not Invig. I think Invig's still really important, but like in a lot of areas, Rage Regen is more important because getting your ults up sometimes is more important than having your damage increased, because more concentrated damage more often sometimes is better than boosting the damage that's coming out already. Obviously they go hand in hand, but Regen, especially lately, has been really important. And there's no Regen heroes in the game. Straight up. There's 5 Regen heroes in the game that Regen other units. You might think there's only 4. There's technically 5. But we only have a couple. So there's 2 epics, which is great, which is Hollow, who's probably the most used healer in the game. And we have Laurel, who's also one of the most important epics in the game. Top 3 epic for sure. Both of them are, alongside Dolores, for obvious reasons. And then we have Laya, who's an insanely rare, by far the most rare hero in the normal pool. Very, very rare unit overall, only tied with Morrigan. She's like tied for the lowest rates. She has some rage regen, but even then the rage regen is not that crazy. It's about 15% rage regen every time she ults, which is not that much. And then we have Elowyn, which is who I'm referencing, partially because of the rage regen, partially for some other issues, which I'll look at more into later. This is kind of a rant video, but I hope some of what I'm saying, despite it being disjointed and unscripted, has some kind of effect. But the 5th hero is actually Idril. Idril technically has rage regen. Fun fact. Right here. Every time she triggers her ult at A3, she gets 5% rage. That's all the rage regen in the game that I know of. And there's not a lot of it. One of them is uber rare. One of them is the character which I'm referencing as a big issue. And then 2 of them are epics. And that's it. That's all you have. Which normally would be fine because epics, are pretty easy to get. Although a lot of people are missing them and can't play the game the same way just because they're missing them. Which is a ridiculous issue to have in a game where you need like 1 or 2 characters or you can't beat it. Same issue with Dolores, but that's not exactly what this video is about. Part of the reason why Elowyn's so important in that kind of archetype, which is Rage Regen, she does it everywhere. And it seems like the devs are adamant over and over and over again to make this the most important mechanic at every stage now. Which is, once again, referring to gear dungeons. Because the way that the gear dungeons are formatted, and have been formatted, and keep coming out, is you literally can only use Elowyn for the most important mechanic for these stages. And it's brutal, because they cut off all of these tiles, so you can't place any, like, hollow here to heal... to rage regen over here, and this tile becomes the most important tile in the stage, and you have to get rage regen on it, or you literally cannot beat it. It just causes so many issues, and it's a problem. It really is. Like, when I read through my comments, and I go through them, especially recently, where I talked about how we might get an anniversary Eloin banner, people are just constantly talking about how they can't beat things, they can't go progress, they can't do this and that, because they're missing a rage regen from Eloin. Missing rage regen as a whole, because Eloin is the only hero that works. And that's the part I want to emphasize. Gear Dungeon 1, sure, is doable without Elowyn. It just is. You don't need Elowyn for it at all. You could put Hollow right here, Laurel up there to buff Valk, or you could just use Laurel to kind of give it to Comet or whatever, whoever you're using for the top. But Rage Regen is undeniably so important, and Elowyn trivializes the stage compared to everything else you could do. I've done so many takeovers where I have to use no Elowyn, and it constantly makes me pissed off because I need Elowyn, or I'm sitting there for like 2 hours straight trying to complete it, and like the gear is good, the heroes are good, everything, but missing a single Elowyn. I could have an A5 Valk, an A5 like Comet, and still struggle because Elowyn is not on the account. And that's not how stage design should work in this game, in my opinion. I don't think that should be the case, and it looks like every new content that comes out, except maybe Guild Bust 2, where maybe Elowyn won't be the most important hero. Maybe it is important. I don't know that much about that content, but they're releasing more gear dungeons. They're testing more gear dungeons. They're testing more parts of the game, and it seems like with the trend, it's going to require Elowyn, and that's what bothers me. So they introduce kind of an important, really unique, not unique, lots of games do it, but they introduce an important mechanic proceed to then make it so only a handful of characters can use it, and then they proceed to section off those usable characters that are accessible, aka Hollow, who a lot of people have. If you don't have her, that's okay, you're probably earlier game, but I'm referencing more late game. They essentially make it so these are useless, right? And it seems like they try to do that everything, every single time, and I'm just worried for the state of the game if that keeps being the main issue that makes these stages hard. Because yes, these stages are hard, but they should be hard because they're hard. They should not be hard because they're hero restrictive. Obviously, Elowyn is not the only issue that falls under this requirement. I just personally think that, at least lately, she is the most egregious example of this problem, which is hero exclusivity, and Elowyn seems like the biggest kind of culprit of that. Obviously, when you look at this hyper-specific example, which is Gear Dungeon 2 or Gear 8.5, obviously it's Elowyn and like Hex and Hatchet and like all of this stuff. Sure, you could make arguments for all of them. I just am referencing Elowyn because she's the one that makes me the most upset when I don't have her on a takeover, and she's also the one that falls into the most important game mechanic in the game, or at least the second most. It's pretty interchangeable in my eyes, but it's a problem. It just is, and that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to mention. It bothered me. I'm sad to see the game kind of go this route. Regen is so important. And although Elowyn is not too used, you can see it everywhere in the game. Guild boss, Regen is king. You have Lias, you have Laurels, you have Hollow in almost every team. Sure, Dolores is also there, but you constantly have to have like multiple Regen units for every content in the game. Gear Aid 1, you want Regen. Gear Aid 2, you want Regen. Gear Aid 3, you want Regen. Gear Dungeon 1, you need Regen. Gear Dungeon 2, you need Elowyn. Not just Regen, Elowyn. If you don't have her, you essentially lose just off of that. And it's just annoying. It's just annoying. And that's all I wanted to bring to your guys' attention. I just needed an outlet to rant because I don't agree with it, with how the game is trending towards requiring mechanics that are very hard to come across. Maybe with Anora coming out, who is immune to most Regen except for Laurel when you pull Laurel, maybe they're going more into not requiring it as much, but all I think that's going to kind of happen there is Regen will still be important, but Anora is balanced out because she's so strong and also is immune to debuffs, so I think they'll just have debuffs be important to kind of deal with, and then they're also going to have Elowyn once again be the most important unit because she cleanses debuffs and causes Regen. So it looks like Elowyn's just going to be the most important unit in most content from now on, and I don't want that to be the case. They need to release more Regen units. They need to release more content where it's more on your skill as a player and less on the hero diversity. Obviously, Gear Dungeon 2 is also a skill-based thing, but it shouldn't be a skill-based thing that's so hard, which it is, and also be a hero block as well. It should be one or the other, and hopefully not the other. That's all I want to talk about. Thank you guys for listening. If any of you have any thoughts in the comments, I'd love to read them on if you have Elowyn, if you don't have Elowyn, if you feel really handicapped in this game, because I know I do when I play on accounts without her. And even then, I have her, and I use her everywhere. She's the most important healer in the game. Maybe Hollow is because she's easier to get, but Elowyn is really important and very, very hard to get. So please comment your thoughts. I don't know if this is kind of a controversial topic or not. I'd love to hear. But thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. I love ranting in these videos. Sometimes I just have things I need to get off my chest. But yeah, so that's it from me. Thank you guys for watching, and Destined signing out.